She turned me into a newt. I got better. In Monty Python and the Holy Grail, this sketch depicts the way that fictional medieval England would have decided if a woman was a witch. If we strip away the slapstick elements, the false nose, the way in which a woman, if she was the same weight as a duck, was obviously a witch, this leaves us with a parody of a very real, very troubling characteristic shared by cultures around the world. For much of human history, women have been demonized for having the audacity to want to be more than a wife and a mother. In fact, that part of human history continues today in many places. Laws have been written around the world to apply unequally to women and girls, and the use of physical punishment or public humiliation has been widespread. This week, we read Parashat Naso. Well, this Parashat includes 3 lines that are among the most famous in all of Judaism, the priestly benediction. I instead want to grapple with the practice of sotah. In 20 verses, the Torah lays out a horrifying method for evaluating whether a wife has in fact been unfaithful to her husband. This ritual involves curses and a, quote, water of bitterness. Like many other passages in the Torah, we're left to evaluate what lessons, if any, can be taken from something so far removed from the morals of today. I want to offer some thoughts about how to think about some of the more troubling passages we read throughout the year, simultaneously acknowledging the harm they can cause and recognizing that beneath the surface there is something to learn. One way is to wonder whether this was ever to be taken literally at all. As with many other episodes in the Tanakh, scholars have debated and pondered whether this practice of sotah, was ever something that happened. The Mishnah tells us that early in the rabbinic period, the ritual was abolished, but there's no evidence that it ever took place outside of the Tanakh. So why did the compilers of the Torah include these verses? J. McCrensky, a scholar of Kabbalah, writes persuasively of a lesson we can take away from this. No, we should not obviously subject anybody we suspect of breaching Hashem's rules to such profoundly abhorrent practices. But the idea that we should confront issues in our community, however it is that we are wanting to define community, remains a good one. The longer we allow disputes or disagreements to fester, the more challenging they become to get rid of, the more challenging it becomes to restore balance. Now, we know that this kind of confrontation is not easy to do. Most of us have a natural tendency to avoid confrontation, or at least put it off as long as possible. We reckon that the idea of doing something so uncomfortable is hard, and this is just human nature. We all take the easiest path through something whenever possible, and we have to force ourselves to have these kinds of conversations on difficult topics, and we know that requires significantly more effort. So if there is one lesson to be gleaned from this week's Parashah, it's that there is really no benefit to putting off something that will inevitably have to be confronted. It's better to figure out how to move forward before a problem has a chance to go all out of proportion to its importance. Now, I do want to end today with a note related only tangentially to this week's Parashah. A week ago, last Saturday morning, we awoke to the joyous news of the rescue of 4 hostages, who were then, of course, reunited with their friends and family after more than 8 months in captivity. No, I am not personally someone who believes in signs or messages, but I did pause when I read earlier this week the first initials of the names of each of the 4 hostages who had been released: Noah, Shlomi, Amug, and Andre, spelled Naso, which means to transfer, or to carry away, or to bear to safety, which of course also happens to be the name of this week's Parashah. If that is not a sign, then I truly don't know what is. But we soon see the return of the rest of the hostages and an enduring peace descend upon Israel. Shabbat Shalom.